Okay, we've got nightfall here on Sandy. Just an awesome 1 minute satellite image loop right there. Just really cool stuff. Seeing the storm swirl around, pretty impressive looking system to say the least, and night falling, and it's not going to stop Sandy from continuing to maintain intensity out there in the Atlantic Ocean. Huge storm in terms of the size of it. We've got tropical storm force winds extending way out from the center of this storm, about 520 miles or so. Hurricane force winds about 140, 150 miles from the center of the storm. It has winds of 75, and it's moving right now northeast at 13. That's going to turn. It's going to go north, then northwest, and then sharply to the west-northwest and into the New Jersey coastline, most likely. On the rightweather.net website, you can go to the interactive radar and check out the buoy reports. This is as of 6:50 in the evening, seeing seas of 16.7 feet, wind gusting to nearly 50 miles per hour at that buoy south of Long Island. This is one day before the storm is expected to arrive. It is right around 8 o'clock in the evening on Monday that it should be making landfall. So to see these kind of seas way out ahead of it, 12 feet, closer to home, if you live in Rhode Island, down south of Block Island, looking at seas of 11.5 feet with a peak period of 12 seconds in there. So some pretty big rollers coming in. 33 knot winds at the buoy that's south of Nantucket, and seas of 13 feet. Seas will continue to build, and coastal flooding, a major concern from this storm because of the storm surge and the huge amount of water that it is going to be bringing our way in those very rough waves. The forecast is for nearly 30-foot waves on Block Island and about 25-foot waves down at Point Judith. This is a wind analysis of Hurricane Sandy, and you can see the size there, the black line indicating the tropical storm force winds, and just basically off the charts as far as the size of those tropical storm force winds for recent memory Atlantic hurricanes. The pressure is 952 millibars, really low, expected to hold that pressure now for a little while, and then maybe even to strengthen a little bit as it gets closer to the coastline. The wind destructive potential rating is a 2.8 out of 6, so sort of middle of the ground, but the surge and waves destructive potential rating is a 5.8 out of 6. They've been doing that rating since 1969, and this is the highest rating of any storm, including Katrina, now including Rita. Now, don't think that this storm is going into an area that's not as vulnerable as New Orleans and the Gulf Coast is in terms of the storm surge vulnerability, but it is going to be pretty destructive when it comes on shore from the Jersey coast through Long Island, Connecticut, and up here in Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts. Here's the look at the peak wind potential with the storm. Landfall likely as Category 1 hurricane on the Jersey coast. So any of the red shading that you see here, southern Rhode Island, coastal Connecticut, Long Island, eastern Massachusetts, the Cape, and the islands, 75-plus mile-per-hour wind gusts are possible. Yellow shading, which includes everybody else in Rhode Island, all of interior eastern Massachusetts, and basically the rest of Connecticut, strong tropical storm force winds of 65 miles per hour with this one. And then farther inland, 50 to about 65 mile per hour peak wind gusts. So really impressive impressive stuff heading our way. I think the storm's going to end up being stronger than Irene was, because the track that it's taking, for one, you can go back and look at the 6 reasons that I'm scared about Sandy, and one of them is the track of the storm. It will not have a chance to weaken before it makes landfall. So Irene was falling apart as it was coming up the coastline. Here's the Sandy timeline: 9 in the morning, 9 in the morning, high tide time at the south coast of Rhode Island and in Buzzards Bay, and around noontime on the Cape. And that's when the first storm surge or coastal flooding is expected. The real storm surge, though, should come during the evening high tide. That's what it's going to be worse. And one of the higher storm surges and coastal flooding threats that we have seen in decades along the Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts coastline. Strongest winds with with the storm probably going to occur about 4 to 6 o'clock tomorrow evening. That's when the sustained winds will be maybe as low as 40 miles per hour, with gusts as high as 75. Some will see sustained winds in the 50 to 60 mile per hour range, along with those 75 mile per hour wind gusts. with the highest end potential probably in the 80 to 85 mile per hour wind gust range if the storm ends up being a little bit closer to us. And the best likelihood of seeing those kind of gusts would be at the coastline. And then by 2 in the morning, the wind coming around to the southeast at 25 to 50 miles per hour, and diminishing some during the night down to 15 to 30 miles per hour by early on Tuesday morning. Tuesday, a blustery and showery day. We could see that wind actually picking back up a little bit depending on the track that Sandy takes as it moves inland and starts to weaken. So northeast initially with the winds, then east around the peak, and then southeast and south-southeast. Have another graphic here to show you. Just to reiterate, 60 to 80 mile per hour winds near the coast, 50 to 65 mile per hour winds inland, widespread power outages. Maybe they won't be quite as bad as they were during Irene. It's all about luck sometimes with the power outages, but the winds I expect to be a little bit stronger, less foliage though on the trees, and Irene may have taken out a lot of diseased and damaged trees, so there might not be as many easy targets with this storm. 12 to 22 foot waves at the beach, and now you can up that actually to about 25 feet at the Rhode Island coastline and even higher on Block Island. 20 to 40 foot seas offshore. Peak seas around the center of the storm, not necessarily too close to us, maybe around 45, 50 feet. So this is a major coastal flooding threat. 1 to 3 inches of rain over the next couple of days into Wednesday, and occasional heavy showers. Flooding unlikely, though. So we're not on the rainy side of the storm, but we are certainly on the windy and the coastal flood threat side of the storm. You see the prediction here for a 6-foot surge, Fox Point. 6.2 feet, the surge forecast for Connecticut Point. It's the western part of the bay that I am most concerned about because of that northeast and then east and then southeast wind direction, but everyone in the bay vulnerable to an impressive surge. Westport also vulnerable to some major flooding. And you can see the same deal out there in eastern Massachusetts. And it looks like 3 consecutive high tide cycles, starting with the morning high tides on Monday morning going to the evenings. And then the following morning, you're looking at least moderate flooding. And tomorrow evening and possibly tomorrow morning could be looking at some major flooding in a few spots, with tomorrow evening the real threat zone. So the brunt of the storm, again, tomorrow, Monday afternoon and Monday evening. Keep it to rightweather.net for the latest on the storm. If you want to get a Right Weather Pro account, I'll have the live blog going again on Monday, and that is available to Right Weather Pro subscribers. It's $30 for the entire year, so that can get you through tons of storms with the live blog, and then also long-range forecasts that I put out twice a week for the northeastern United States, as well as seasonal forecasts that I'll be putting out our winter forecast coming up during the month of November, some custom event forecasts if you have a big event going on. So you get an awful lot is what I'm trying to say for $30. It's normally $40 a year, but I lowered the price on account of Sandy. I'll continue to keep you updated on rightweather.net.